Welcome back. So in this video, we are going to be looking at lists. You'll notice that I still have this example from the previous video, and I just wanted to show you basically how you can kind of go more quickly from video to video. So if you wanted to, what you could do is you could take this file or you could take a different file and you could use that as the basis for your next files. So I know in a previous one we had created this template file, so you could always go and open up this template, and then what you could do is you could go File, Save As, and then I'm going to still choose week 1 for this. And then this topic we're going to talk about lists, so I'm going to choose lists as the name, and then I can go and I can choose HTML. For some reason they put that at the top, and I can hit save, and then now I've got this file that's called lists. That template file still exists because I went and I did File, Save As, so I can always go back and reuse that over and over again. Same thing too, if you kind of liked how this information was commented, where it has a little bit of tips, like head section is used to pass information onto the browser. This information shows up on the browser tab, any of that. If you would prefer to use this as sort of a basis, what you could do is you could take HTML basics, go File, Save As, and then in this case I could go and I could choose my files in here, and then I could actually say I want to save this as lists, hit save. It's going to say it's going to replace it. That would be fine too. And then what you could do is just delete everything in the body section. This just helps so that way you don't have to start over from scratch every single time that you're working. If you want the practice though, you can start from scratch. Usually what I will do is, as I'm going through the video lecture and I'm starting each new week's lecture, I might start the first one from scratch, and then I'll often build off of the previous ones in a similar fashion to this. So I just wanted you to kind of see how that would all sort of play out, so you have kind of an idea of it. And you could be able to do this from the first file or from that template file. Especially that would be really helpful for you, I think, working with the homework assignment, because you could basically do that as well. You could take something like this and just go File, Save As, and then you could create your index file for the homework, and you would know for sure that you've got your doc type written correctly, you've got your comment, you've got the HTML with the language set to English, you've got the head section, you've got the body section. So I'm going to keep this one just because I do like that I added the comments to it, and I'm going to switch this to, let's do HTML lists, because that's going to be our topic for this video, and I'll try to keep it brief. And so there's a couple of ways for you to organize your information on your page into different types of lists. Each list has its own purpose. So in the body section, the rest of this we should be able to keep the same. Everything that we're going to add is just going to be in the body section, which is why I was thinking it'd be great for us to just start from what we already have. So we have an ordered list, and I'm going to add in an H2 above it. In fact, this is kind of a great practice for thinking about how you could organize your notes even in a page. So we could say HTML lists, and then we could have an H2. We could say this is our ordered list, and then with our ordered list, we are going to have our LI. You could think of these as list items, or you could think of it as line items. Either way, they're the different items that are in your list. So we have an ordered list, which abbreviates to OL, and you'll notice we're indenting this. That's because these are children, we'll get back to that idea, but they're children of this parent. They're sub pieces to this category that's containing everything. And we could just add a few more. So we have a couple different things here. And what I'm going to do, and I'll do this a lot, is copy, Command C or Control C to copy, Command V or Control V to paste. And then I'm going to switch this to a U. And that's going to stand for unordered. We'll make an H2 above it. Unordered list. And if you need to, you could add a paragraph. We could say, these items need to go in a specific order. That's what's called an ordered list. It could be like a recipe where you have a list of directions that has to go in, or a favorites list where the ranking matters. And then we have our unordered list. So in this case, these items do not need to be in a specific order. It could be like let's say a grocery list where technically you could go through the store in a particular order, but you really don't need to. You could technically get all of your items in a different order every single time and it would be fine. So these are two different types of lists and they're very similar to each other. And so I like to introduce them at the same time. And then we have a third, so I'm trying to make that full screen. We've got a third type of list, which functions a little bit different. And that's our description list. Our description list sorry, I can't type and speak at the same time very easily. So a description list has terms that are paired with definitions, and it could be more like questions, like an FAQ section where you have frequently asked questions where you have, instead of a term, you have a question, and then instead of having a definition, you have an answer. It could be something like that, but it's very much paired information. So we'll add another paragraph. So you have to have sets of information. So in this case, we have a DL, which sometimes people get this confused. I know with an L, it can sometimes be hard to tell if it's an L or the number 1, especially you get so used to having the headings where there's an H1, H2. So this is an L, DL, for description list. That can kind of help you remember that a little bit. So you create the description list. It's going to be very similar to how there's an ordered list and an unordered list, and we're going to put items inside of it. But instead of having these list items or line items where every single one has its own item, these are going to have pairs of information. So you're going to have the description term, and then you're going to have the description definition, or you can also think of it like data is another way to think of it. So you have DT for description term, DD for the definition or the data. And then I'm just going to copy this a few times so we can see that. And you'll notice that we quite quickly came up with a whole page of different types of lists. So what I'd like for us to do next, and sorry, this is probably where it's going to be really helpful to be able to pause so that way you can kind of see everything. And don't worry too much if you miss something here. Your book has really good examples of working with lists and everything. What I want to do though is I'm going to open this so we can take a look at it. So here we have our H1 HTML lists, and then we've got ordered list, unordered list, description list. And you'll be able to see that by default, we've got these numbers here for our ordered list. And then for our unordered list, we've got these bullet points. And then the description list, it takes the first item and then it indents whatever the second thing is. And eventually you can style that in a different way. That's just kind of the default style for it. And this is where if you go to your modules, you'll notice I have a ton of links. We've already looked in a previous video at some of this information, like there's the W3 org, there's the section 508 that was mentioned in the PowerPoint. And then I've got a couple of links here. And this is just to give you a little bit more information about working with these. So this is the W3 schools. They've got some really great tutorials and documentation for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You'll notice it also has things like Python on here. It's got a ton of really great information. So they've got examples here. And one of the things I like about it is showing the type attribute, and it's saying that we can change the values for how things look. So by default, we've got the number 1, but we can also choose lowercase a, uppercase a. We can use Roman numerals, lowercase, uppercase if we wanted to. Now, these are going to give you errors. It's going to be fine for now when you go to validate your code and you have these errors, but eventually we're going to want to replace any sort of instance that we have of this styling for our list. We're going to want to do that eventually all in CSS instead, because it is considered outdated. But right now, since all we know is HTML, that's just what we're going to use. So this is done with a type attribute, and that's another thing we can go and add to our notes. So I could add another H2 and just say you can style the unordered and ordered lists with the type attribute. I guess technically that could be placed up higher, kind of closer to them. It's not going to matter so much. I'm just writing it out so you have another place to look at it. So what you would do is in the opening tag for your ordered list or your unordered list, you would type in the attribute type, set that equals to, and then you choose a value. So with ordered list, we had the option of like uppercase A, lowercase, Roman numerals. So you can do any of that. And then that's going to change this. So that way it's actually going to show as A, B, C, D. And then with our unordered list, so with our unordered list, I've got a link to the W3 schools, and they have some examples, but they don't go into the different list options in the documentation from what I can recall. But they do have an example that shows. So here they have circle, disk, and square, and they're actually writing this in a different way. This is actually using the CSS, so just kind of ignore how this is written for now. We're looking more at what this looks like. So circle is a bullet point that's empty, and then disk is filled in, and then we've got square as an option as well. So what we could do here is we could say, I want the type to be equal to square. Save that. And then we could refresh, and now we've got A, B, C, D, and then we've got our square bullet points. All right, so this is going to be everything that's going to be for our lists. So we've got our first one with the ordered list, where the order does matter. We've got The second one with our unordered list where the order doesn't matter. We're just listing a bunch of different things off. And then we've got the description list. And again, a reminder, your description list, you have to have the pairs inside of a DL. That's something that often gets forgotten, is that it has to be in its own list. And then you need to have pairs of information. You have to have term, data, term, data, term, data. Sometimes people get a little confused. They put the DD inside of the DT, but you want to just alternate between them. So DT first, DD second, DT first, DT second. And then if you do that, you should be all set. There is going to be a description list in your homework assignment. So you just want to make sure that if you don't understand it, that you know that you can come back here and you can watch the video and it'll help you out. Or you can go and you can look at how the book has talked about it. Either one should be fine. All right, so this is going to be everything for this video. I really just wanted to make a nice little video about lists in particular. And then in the next video, I'm going to talk about working with adding in links.